have too long answers, and we just need to be a little more reasonable with interjections. Question number 2, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister and asks, does he stand by his promise to New Zealanders that, quote, I expect high standards from my ministers. If they don't meet the standards I set, then obviously I will take action if necessary.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Supplementary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Has Bill English, the Minister of Finance, met the standards that he sets, given that the number of unemployed New Zealanders has risen by 78,000 under his watch?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes. As the Associate Minister just pointed out, we're dealing with a global financial crisis. We've created 65,000 jobs over the last 3 years, and the New Zealand economy is more productive.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you. Does he consider it acceptable that unemployment is rising in New Zealand while it is falling in our major trading partners? And does that not point to a failed economic policy from him and his ministers?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, in relation to the last part, no. And in relation to the first part, in many of those countries, the unemployment rate started at a lot higher level. On that basis, if you go and have a look at what happens in terms of the unemployment benefit, this is a government that's got 49,000 people on an unemployment benefit, a lot lower.
Dr. Russell Norman, order. Order. I want to hear this question, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Doesn't it come down to this? Bill English has failed to create the conditions that lead to job growth. People are losing jobs here, while the job market is improving in other countries, and it is only record immigration to Australia that is preventing unemployment reaching even higher levels.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no.
Dr. Russell
Supplementary. How did his Education Minister meet his high standards when she unlawfully decided to close Salisbury School for disabled girls?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, what is true is that the courts have ruled that it's not appropriate to go forward on the basis of safety. What's also true is the Minister thoroughly considered that issue, and the Minister never considered having a co-educational school. She considered having a school which was co-located, and it's yet to be seen whether that transpires.
Point of order.
Before I call the honourable member, can I say to the Labor front benches, when another party's asking a question, they have a right to hear the answer. Some courtesy is reasonable. Dr. Russell Norman.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Dr. Russell Norman.
The question was, how did the Minister meet his high standards? And you gave us the Minister gave us a recitation of the facts, which is fine, but what is a concern is the standards.
Order. And I'm on my feet, I say to the national backbenchers. The member will recollect that in his question he asked how the Minister met certain high standards and then made an assertion of fact in his question about a decision being unlawful. The Prime Minister dealt with that assertion of fact in answering, which he's perfectly entitled to do.
Supplementary.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does he think that it meets the standards of New Zealand parents, let alone the Prime Minister, that his Education Minister decided to close Salisbury School and send girls with intellectual disabilities to a boys' school where their risk of sexual abuse would be 7 times higher, and she didn't think the danger she was putting those girls into was her responsibility?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, a number of the assumptions the member has made are factually incorrect. What was proposed was co-locating effectively single-sex schools on the same site. It's an idea that has a lot of merit.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you. Putting aside the unlawfulness of the Minister's action, does a Minister who blatantly disregards evidence about the safety of the most vulnerable girls, who abrogated her responsibility to consider their safety, and who, according to the High Court, doesn't even think the safety of school kids is her business, Does that minister still meet high standards?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, in relation to the last part, yes. In relation to the first part, the member is making all sorts of assumptions that are not correct. The minister actually thoroughly considered the issue of safety, and that issue was thoroughly discussed.
Dr. Russel Norman.
How can New Zealand parents have confidence in the safety of their kids at school when his education minister takes actions that she knows will expose children to increased risk of sexual and physical violence, according to the High Court judgment, which found her actions illegal?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member is just totally and utterly wrong, basically.
Point of order.
Point of order, Dr. Russel Norman.
I seek leave to table the High Court judgment that shows that his minister is totally wrong.
Order. The document is a public document. Because of the controversy, though, I'll seek the leave of the House. Leave is sought to table that document. Is there any objection? Yes. There is objection. Dr. Russel Norman.
Doesn't it boil down to this? Hekia Parata is the person who is ultimately responsible for the safety of children at school, and she has displayed a blatant disregard for the safety of her children, and doesn't that make her unfit to be a Minister of Education?
No.
Supplementary. Will he be writing to the parents of Salisbury School to explain to them why he continues to have confidence in a Minister of Education who, according to the High Court, unlawfully acted to put their children at greater risk of sexual and physical abuse?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, no, it's not my intention to do so.
Question number 3, the Leader of the Opposition, David Shearer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. To the Prime Minister, does he stand by all his statements and have confidence